Okay, welcome back to the Passive Income and Political Podcast. It does seem that we've been doing a lot more political content lately, and that's good. Today's topic is Freedom Convoy 2.0, and it's my understanding that the point of Convoy 2.0 or Convoy 2025 is to protest the prorogation of Parliament and potentially force a election. Sammy, what are your thoughts? Convoy 2.0, Convoy 2025.
Well, I have to commend the efforts and the intentions of the original spirit of the trucker convoy a few years back. I think that the I don't think it'll be a convoy that'll force an early election. I think that there's enough pressure on the existing Liberal government at this time from multiple directions. I think this would be certainly fitting to uh, jump on board and on the coattails of other organizations and people that are trying to force an early election. But I don't think they'll accomplish what they want through this method and be successful in the same way that they were a few years back. Just my opinion. Like, if forcing an early election is what they're trying to accomplish, I think they're choosing the wrong issue. Right? The issue a few years back was against the prime minister for exercising not for exercising the War Measures Act, but everything that came out of that was about not being told what to do by other people. You have the freedom to choose your path and your course of action. This is a little different, so I'm not sure that it
Right.
will resonate with Canadians the same way.
Right. Yeah, Emergencies Act. You said War Measures Act. You meant Emergency Act,
Oh,
but that's
sorry.
fine. Slightly different, but so
Yeah,
yeah,
just a
in the
tad.
spirit of the original, in the spirit of the original convoy, yes, it was protesting the vaccine mandates and protesting the overreach of government, etc. And it's my understanding that this potential convoy, and it does look like it's happening, like it's trending in Canada on X in the top 20 trending. So it is gaining momentum, so to speak. And we will see on January 22nd. That is the date that they have as the start date, which I believe is like the middle of the week, a Wednesday. So, and you said you don't think they're. I support, obviously, I support the right to peaceful protest. That's an integral part of any democracy. And, that's, again, going back to the original convoy, for the most part, it was a very peaceful protest. Sure, there were some bad apples, but in a crowd that size, going to get, you're always going to get that. But overall, it was a peaceful protest. And invoking the Emergencies Act was definitely that government overreach, right? Suddenly their bank accounts frozen and people being trampled by horses and all sorts of other bad things that happened. Also, I see we have a few people watching here, quite a few actually. So let's get that chat going. Jump into the chat and let us know your thoughts on Freedom Convoy 2.0 or Convoy 2025. What do you think about it? What do you think is going to happen? Um, yeah. And we've kind of covered, like, intertwiningly, the first 2 points on our agenda of the point of Convoy 2.0 and what did the first convoy accomplish, if anything. And that's something we really want to kind of talk about and nail down. Um, the point of Convoy 2.0 to protest the prorogation of Parliament and potentially force an earlier election. Like, we're going to have an election in Canada this year, one way or another, and it's just a
Yeah.
matter of, is it going to be in March? Is it going to be in June? Or is it going to be held out all the way until October. So, and for the most part, people want an election now. People have wanted an election for a year now, right? It's like, just call an election now. People were disappointed when Trudeau stepped down or intends to step down. They were disappointed because it wasn't an election call.
Which is not the first time, right?
Not the
We
first, not
saw
the first time that he
something.
disappointed Canadians.
Yeah, right. And certainly not the first time they disappointed Canadians, but it's not the first time where the decision was made to step down as party leader and and at the same time resume as prime minister until an election process is completed. These are patterns of behavior in the Canadian parliamentary system that have been going on. What did we saw it go all the way back, right?
To the 50s, yeah.
Yeah. So let's not be. There's a lot to be hard on Justin for. We understand that, but this is a seems to be a standard part of the process that's been used for decades, right? So,
right.
I would have been happier to see the truckers just flat out call it an endorsement of Pierre Poilievre convoy, right? Because that's essentially what this is going to be, if it's anything at all, like you're saying.
Right.
Canadians in general, they understand they don't, me myself, I don't even fully understand what was wrong with the letter that was sent to the Governor General. If you guys know, let us know in the chat what specifically was wrong with this, because it seems to follow a pretty standard process going prime minister. I mean, I'm talking not Martin, but for the last 50, 60 years, this has been happening to buy time for the party. So
yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything new, right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how effective protesting that particular piece is and how that will resonate with Canadians, because it doesn't resonate with me, right? The protest that occurred a few years back, whether you loved it or hated it, you understood why they were there, what they were doing,
what their
but
issue
to protest
was.
But to protest a parliamentary process, that's not going to resonate with your guy from
Moose Jaw,
Tweed, or yeah. So anyway, they need advisors, Dave. They need us.
Yeah, they need advisors for sure. So another thing that I kind of want to touch on, and I'm hoping that people in the chat will jump in here soon, and it's and I think you've kind of already answered the question: will the sequel be as good as the original?
No, not with this as the cause. I would go out on a limb. It might be kind of like a Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul event.
More of a spectacle, just yeah. And are there any real winners then? Like, okay, so actually, let's go back to your earlier point of, you think they're just protesting the wrong thing. Is there anything that they should be protesting that was resonate more with Canadians?
Well, I think yes. I think they should be more specific as to why they're there. This idea of protesting a parliamentary process, like I said, resonate well with Canadians. I don't fully listen to it this morning for 40 minutes, but it does seem to. It's an unfortunate, dirty part of Canadian politics. It seems to be there. If I was the convoy and I wanted to make a
Statement,
make a splash, I would simply just full out endorse Pierre Poilievre, right? Because that's what they're doing anyway. There's going to be so many explicit, you know the word I'm trying to say, explicit F Trudeau signs. The real message will be drowned out by the number of people that are going to see the spectacle, not necessarily be a part of the spectacle. If I was them, I would just call this a freedom convoy, and we want change, and they would get a much better and bigger reaction from Canadians, because they understand they want change. They don't understand why proroguing Parliament and going about it this way is such a problem. Neither do I.
Now, you've said a few times too, you've referred to the truckers, and obviously that the original convoy in 2022, that was a trucker convoy. There was, big rigs and all sorts of different sizes of trucks parked throughout Ottawa, primarily the downtown core, all around Parliament Hill for literally weeks on end, right? Honking horns and etc.
Yes.
And
staging as far away as Castleman.
Right. And I don't even know how much the truckers have to do with this new convoy. Now we also have to, mention people like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, aka Big Red. They can't be involved in this. They're still like in the courts and battling that. Like, I don't even think they're allowed to talk to each other because of just the way the court system works, right? So, you take away those two and other key figureheads of the original protest, the original convoy, and I just don't know if Freedom Convoy 2025 has the same leadership and organization as the original. What are your thoughts on some of those people and where they're at with the organization too? Like, I just heard about this 2 or 3 days ago, and it has gained momentum, but can they pull this off in less than 2 weeks? It's literally January 11th today, and so 11 days. January 22nd is the start date that they're talking about.
Well, it's funny you bring this up, because if you can organize a convoy of the size that they would like in the period of time that they would like, they could surely raise $350,000 and put their name in as a viable candidate. See, this is it's okay to protest. It's great to protest. It's a right that we have, and we should never take it for granted. But what do you want to do with it? Right. Canadians want to change, and that will be the Conservative government. But protesting a parliamentary process is not going to resonate.
I definitely hear what you're saying. You've repeated it several times now. Like, yeah, protesting a parliamentary process isn't going to get you anywhere. I mean, you can make your voices heard that maybe the process should be changed, but it's not going to be changed overnight. It's not going to be changed by February 1st or anything like that, right? It's, maybe somewhere down the road, when the Conservatives are in power, they can change that parliamentary process. But that prorogation of Parliament has protected the Conservatives in the past as well, right? Stephen Harper used it back in the mid 2000s, and others have used it prior to that. Way back to Diefenbaker, before we were even born, right?
So all the power to him. You and I have already expressed interest in making the trip for a day to kind of see. Maybe we'll go live and get some shots of what's going on, coming to you live from the protest. Let us know in the see something on that, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. It might be interesting to check out. But I think really what's bothering Canadians the most is there's nothing to do right now. Like, what is? I know the Conservative Party is organizing. I see Elizabeth May is doing some great work. I see the premiers all firing on all cylinders. I
All
do see a
cylinders.
sense of I do see a sense of unity that I haven't seen in a long time. But as for John Q. Canadian, what do we? We are watching the media, both mainstream and podcast world, every day,
Yeah,
and we're
X
watching
and
the same.
YouTube.
Yeah, and we're watching the same stories being recycled through 12 hours, 13 hours, 4 hours, and it's ultimately all the same. We're in a complete holding pattern, right?
Right.
So it's frustrating. While we want change, the Canadian system is extremely pragmatic and step by step, and it will not bend because of the Canadian people.
Which is unfortunate, right? Like, that's the whole
Yeah,
point of a democracy, is serve the people.
yeah. So trucker convoy. Yes, you want an election now. Leave the process part of it out, right? Fine, I'll give you
Right,
that. You
right.
don't have to support you support poly. You don't have to support any party leader proper. For your protest is change, desired change to the direction and leadership of this country, not an intricate process piece.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, so you seem pretty convinced that at the end of the day, this new Convoy 2.0, Convoy 2025, probably really at the end of the day isn't going to accomplish much. Is that fair to say? That's your assessment?
Depends what some leaders do with this, right? Uh, I can just see Pierre Poilievre with a Canadian flag in the background, microphone or megaphone, speaking to a number of protesters outside Parliament. It depends what other people are going to do or how they're going to use this as an opportunity to get the word out. But the protesters alone disrupting, you know, there was a large portion of the protesters did not, rightfully or wrongfully. I'm not commenting on that either way, but there was a lot of people that thought that the protest of 2022 went a little far. People getting harassed on their way to school, on their way to work, simply for wearing a mask as they were told. Now,
Advised to
that
do,
was
yes.
they were advised to do. So that's still very fresh in the minds of a lot of Canadians. So they want to be careful they're not met with sighs and eye rolls as opposed to Canadian
Support for the
flags.
cause.
And yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the original Convoy. Got a little, you know, a little out of hand. Definitely the honking of the horns. After a few days, I did definitely start to feel sorry for the people of downtown Ottawa who lived in that general area. And it's like, okay, you can put up with it for a couple of days, 2, 3 days. But yeah, after a week, 10 days of horns honking nonstop, 24/7, yeah, that's a little too much. So now, again, as much as I support the right to peaceful protest, and for the most part, it was a peaceful protest, and this new Convoy 2.0 should also be a peaceful protest, assuming that happens. And yeah, there were definitely elements of the original Convoy that far right.
Yeah. And maybe you could pull up on the screen. I mean, you've been tracking this Freedom Convoy 2.0 for, I'd say, the last week or so, and you've seen it growing to the point where it's trending on X. Am I correct in
Yeah,
saying
yeah. So
that?
actually, I will do that. I'll pull up. Yesterday it was trending as high as number 12 when I checked down to 17. So I'm not sure where it's trending right now, but actually I should just so this at treason convoy seems to be the top. Um, Now yesterday morning, you look at that and say, "Oh, they've only got 189 followers." Well, yesterday morning I was the 19th follower. Just to keep an eye on this, the official X page of the next convoy to Ottawa, we are demanding that Justin Trudeau call an election now. Get news and updates here. So from yesterday morning at 19 followers to this morning at 189 followers. So people are, and then it does seem like, okay, the pinned post, it's official. Another Freedom Convoy will be headed to Ottawa on January 22nd to protest the prorogation parliament and to demand Justin Trudeau call an election and,
No,
election now
yeah,
protest.
I know what they're
We are
doing. I know what they're doing on bringing awareness to the problem of prorogative. What do you how do you say prorogation?
prorogation.
But I agree that's actually why they're there. But they really want to get people to join. Drop that, right? Convoy for change. That's what it is. That's what this is.
Right. So this is sort of one of their posters or banners. We are aware of the public's concerns regarding the upcoming protest scheduled to begin on January 22nd. To clarify, this event is not a recreation or recreation of the original Freedom Convoy and will not involve blockades or any form of obstruction to public infrastructure or essential services. Convoy 2025. And I mean, I, I'm kind of wondering again, going back to such short notice, like you said, I've been following it for a week. It's literally been 2 or 3 days since I saw it first pop up on my X feed. And yeah, I got quite interested right away and started following it. But it's the timing of it. They have enough time. Um, yeah, this is showing it trending at number 22 as of yesterday. Um, Last night it was trending as high as 12 in Canada. Now, obviously, other things are trending much higher. The California wildfires, et cetera, and other things like that are taking up much higher priority.
Well, I think the interesting thing to see that I'm liking the organization. I like clearly there's something happening, right? So even right now, there's people calling, getting in touch with this gentleman, asking about details. Where do I join up? It's all happening right now. One thing that's not lost on me is sorry, Dave. Are these pictures fresh, or are these from old?
Well, something like this honestly just looks photoshopped. That just looks like some type of Photoshop or Canva or other photo design software. A lot of these, I believe, are from 2022, and then obviously
So
this banner is new.
so the whole F Trudeau thing. This is one thing that's not new. So um,
Right.
keep your message relatable to all Canadians. All Canadians can relate to the desire for change. They all cannot relate to a change in process. That's all. But do I think some politicians and groups could use this as a springboard to a really successful convoy with the right messaging, right? Make it an event
Right.
that parliamentarians, politicians alike want to be a part of instead of want to distance themselves from. So there's a lot of aspects to the convoy of 2022 that the politicians obviously uh, wanted to distance themselves from that. Um, so a couple things to think about if you're going to move forward with a trucker convoy. You're you're still dealing with a bruised and battered Ottawa Police Service, right? So they a
Right.
lot of officers on the job during that time. They haven't forgotten about this, and you know the resources and the approach will be a lot different than last time. Remember, they lost their friend and leader. The only person that lost their job throughout this was the chief of police
Right.
in Ottawa. Well, I'd only ask. Everyone was celebratory at the time. However, we were talking about it yesterday, Dave. What would you do given the circumstances that you woke up to that
Right.
morning? Right? So the police chief loses his job. The police, local municipal police service, good people working there felt like they were thrown to the wolves. They didn't have the resources. It took the military, other police services having to come in. So you're going to be dealing with a mentality of a local police service is quite different than 2022. So I would, before you start anything, I would know what your rights to protest actually are, right? I would really research all that. What is going to, I would really understand the concept of passive resistance. What is the difference between passive resistance and
Right.
resistance, and the different paths that each one of those behaviors take you when dealing with a police officer. Uh, Active resistance, assaultive behavior that could and should land you in jail, right? And we can't live in a society where it's okay to harm others, including those who are sworn to protect
Let me
us.
jump in there, Sammy.
Um,
So
yeah,
that's actually a good segue to. I've seen several from at Tyrant Disposal. I've seen several posts similar to this as I've been keeping an eye on this hashtag Convoy 2025 is a Fed setup. Do not go. You will end up in jail or worse. Not to mention there are no politicians in Ottawa, just cops. And so if we were to click on his profile, uh, he's got several posts to this regard as a Fed setup. Do not go. You will regret it. Um, there is nothing Canadian about Convoy 2025. Farmers and truckers have nothing to do with it. Convoy 2025. Um,
we're wrong. Farmers and truckers, if you're Canadian, everyone has everything to do with
yeah,
it.
well, I've said it a million times. If it wasn't for farmers and truckers, we all starve, right? Uh,
Yeah, that's a. I don't know. I don't know who this guy
no,
is,
I'd never heard of him
but
before either. He's only got
farmers and
600 and
truck.
some followers, but he has posted a lot about uh, warning people basically not to go there. No politicians in Ottawa, and these lunatics have no plan other than having you arrested or worse. Do not go. You will regret it forever. Um, so that's definitely his stance, his opinion that it's basically all a setup.
Well, politics. I'm not a politician, but I have been accused of being one at times. And politics is about inclusion, not exclusion. So
Are you still with us, Sammy? I think your audio's cut out again.
yeah, I think we're having some real audio issues here.
We're trying to reestablish the connection here. Are you there?
We've been hacked. It's a cyber attack.
It's a cyber attack. Yeah, we're talking about. Yeah, exactly. There you're back finally. Okay, well, we'll try to finish up.
I was just saying, Dave. I don't know if it captured it or not. Uh, I'm not a politician, but I've been accused of being one before. And what I do know
Accused.
is, yeah, what I do know is, politics is about inclusion. It's not about exclusion. And for someone to go online and start talking about don't go there, and this whole issue has nothing to do with any type of group. I think he named truckers and farmers.
Right.
You know, this issue open. That's the wonderful thing about freedom of protest, freedom of speech. This election is so important to everybody, even that the Liberals are registering their pets as registered
Yeah.
voters. You know, and we like to sit up here in our ivory Canadian tower and look at the United States about shenanigans going on down there. Well, you know what? The same
They
group of
happen here
people,
too.
and it's the same group. When have you ever heard of conservatives registering their pets?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you hear that, Whistler? You're going to get a vote in the next election, or at least in the Liberal Party election.
Oh yeah, it would be great. Whistler, would have his, of course, there'd be accessibility rules added. He'd be able to walk in. There'd be a spot where for him to go to the bathroom. They'd probably even feed him.
Yeah. Dog treats, everything, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, we are in close proximity to Canada's busiest highway. They will be coming from from our direction, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. So what we'll do for everyone as we approach the date, we'll set something up over at a overpass that's
Overpass on the
close. I wasn't
401.
going to mention the name, but just show the activity in that stretch of the 401 and let our viewers come to their own conclusions. Is something happening or not?
Right. Yeah, I was definitely hoping the chat would be more lively on this live stream. So if you're watching, please jump into the chat because I would really like to know if you are planning on heading towards Ottawa. Sammy already mentioned that we've had the thought of actually going to Ottawa a day or two prior, or even sometime this week, a week prior, to just kind of get some pictures and video and possibly do some live streaming of the calm before the storm, so to speak. If there even is going to be a storm. That's my big thing too, right? I've seen things like this hype up and then they just flop. And I think that's a very, very realistic potential for this to happen as well, right? Like there's a whole lot of hype and then nothing actually happens.
But it's yeah. But I think what's interesting in this circumstance here, Dave, is when you heard about the protest, you're really excited. Your first thought was to go, right? My first thought was a little different than that. So right away, you and I had to talk about, well, okay, well, what are you thinking about here? Are you thinking about, going and joining the protest for a long term thing, quote unquote special, or you want to go kind of check it out and come back, right? So there's varying degrees of interest
Right.
and of interest in participation. I got no problem with going to Ottawa for a day, but I have no
Inclination to stay there for a week or
no
two.
no no no.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you should know me that my initial thoughts are like content creation, content creation, content creation,
Yeah,
whether it's
but
for X or YouTube or whatever.
if I could, I'm no one to critique anyone on on anything when it comes to this. But if I could look back at 2022, I would have said I would say now in hindsight, the organizers should have done more to ostracize the troublemakers from their group right off the hop. Set up a team within the organizing group specifically designed to deal with police, deal with the bad eggs. So you're actually working together on something, right?
Like have
As a
their own security
Yeah, as opposed to let the actions of a few drag the whole thing down.
down.
And I'm
Right.
sure to an extent that occurred, but really what was left was in a lot of Canadian, there was a lot of fear. involved in the type of people that were there. And it wasn't reflective of the people that were there. It was reflective of a few assholes.
Now, you also have to keep in mind that, the conspiracy theorists at the time were saying that those people, the bad apples, the bad actors were plants, that they were agent provocateurs, so to speak, of the government, of the Liberal government to make them look bad. Now, again, like I said, you can take that with a grain of salt, whether you believe that or not, whether you think that's a conspiracy theory or not. But I mean, that could potentially, maybe some of them were. I'm sure, out of the literally tens of thousands of people there, and of course, the mainstream media and news reported on the 10 to 20 bad apples, bad actors, and if there were 20, were five of them plants? Who knows? Nobody will ever know. There's no way of ever knowing that, right?
No, exactly. I think that it'll be interesting to see what a guy like Polyev does, or even some of our intellects, right-wing intellects, guys like Jordan Peterson, guys, even American. There's guys like there's guys like Joe Rogan, where if they knew that there was momentum for another convoy in Ottawa, they would be blasting this out and talking about it like crazy. But again, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I'm not. But Joe Rogan is not going to get on there and say, "Can you believe you prorogued Parliament?"
Cutting out again. Your audio cut out again. I'm not sure how much was captured. I had a difficult time hearing that, but I think you were talking about Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like he would be happy to get up there and talk about a Freedom Convoy in Ottawa protesting the government and asking for immediate change. He's not going to talk about the nature in which Parliament was prorogued. They don't get that.
Right. Well, yeah, he's not going to know. He's not going to understand it. He might try to watch a 60-second TikTok or read a paragraph, but you're not going to capture the entire essence of the past several decades of history of Canada and leaders that are in power that have stepped down and prorogation of Parliament. And like you've said several times, this is really nothing new in Canada. It's happened so many times before that, it's a parliamentary process, to your point.
And the CBC, they pretend, they keep using the word unprecedented and historical.
Yeah, unprecedented.
All this stuff. And it's just simply not, right? Unless I'm missing something. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe but it seems awfully similar based on their own story that they ran this morning.
Right. Yeah.
So stop confusing me. I'm not that bright.
Stop confusing the issue.
Well, it's a classic example. They're singing out of both. Speak of, just report the news, right?
Right.
Don't. Anyway.
Get back to Nanfridge, where you're just reading the day's news off the teleprompter and not trying to influence politically left wing or right wing or left or right politics. Just all we want to know is the truthful news of the day. I couldn't have said that better. Well, I guess I did say it myself. Okay, again, I really wish we had more people in the chat on this live stream, because obviously the live streams are so much better when the chat is lively. But what else is there to say about Freedom Convoys? The good, the bad, the ugly? And I know we've already touched on a lot of that, but I guess just sort of some thoughts to sum it up.
Well, I think, now that we've had this conversation, I'd like to look more into the organizer. Was he in any way involved last time as anything other than a spectator? Who is this guy?
I don't know.
What
Yeah,
are his
I'd love to know that
credentials?
information as well.
You know, because right now, I gotta say, it looks something kind of like this, right? It looks like a guy, you kind of put it out there. He's gotten a little bit of traction, maybe, but 160 followers isn't something that I would consider newsworthy at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, like I said, he's gained
Now,
well over followers
160,
in a day, but
160, yeah, 160 rigs is another
yeah, that's
is
another
another thing.
story. Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we'll just see. We'll
Yeah.
keep an eye on this over the course of the next week and see if it continues to gain momentum or if it fizzles out. And quite honestly, I have a feeling it could fizzle out, right? Like maybe I'm sure some people will show up. In my opinion, there's no way this is going to be anywhere near as impactful or anything like the original Freedom Convoy 2022. You know, that original one, again, going sort of back to what you said, whether you agreed with it or not, it definitely opened the eyes of Canadians. It definitely exposed Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government for who they truly were. And, you know, it is part of what has led us to here today. Well, obviously to talking about Freedom Convoy 2.0, but led us here today as far as, you know, Trudeau resigning, the mess that the Liberal Party is in, the Conservatives ready to, you know, pounce in there with you know, majority government. Where I don't think it's any secret that whenever that next election is, whether it is March, June, September, October, whenever this next election actually takes place, it's going to be a massive, massive, massive conservative majority government, the likes we've never seen before in Canada. Like the polls are predicting upwards of 260 seats for the Conservatives in the next election, which can you ever I know you can't because I don't think it's never happened in our lifetime, right? Like a government winning 260 out of 338 seats. Or back when we were younger, it was only 308 seats, but yeah, 338 seats now. Just
Yeah, yeah. It just I'm sorry to drag it on, but the way as you explain that, Dave, why do we need a convoy for? I mean, we're going to see pretty rapid change pretty fast, and uh, I get the whole idea of, well, we don't want to wait; we want an election now. Well, Canadians can ask for that election now. They're asking for that election now,
have been asking for a year and a half,
right?
2 years.
So I hate to say it, but I think you're about a year late or 6 months late, right? The decisions
Right.
that is the decision's already been made. So I would really, consider circling back, looking at the point, looking at the reason, and is this important to you? And if so, is it important? Is it as important to everybody else? Right? And Parliament was dissolved is nothing new. But one thing's for sure, according to Andrew Cloyne and my buddies on the political panel on the CBC, Canadians have certainly spoken, and they do want change, and they want it now.
Right. So, okay, a couple points there. One, Parliament has not been dissolved yet. It's been prorogued, which there is a difference. So, basically, when it comes back
Yeah.
on March 24th, it's all the uh, same members of Parliament. And I love your point there. A couple of things that you stated, like one, you're 6 months to a year too late. Like, where was this a year ago or 6 months ago? Because that's when
Yeah.
you could have actually maybe had your voices heard. And, you know, again, to your point, it's like, well, it's happening. So what's the point of doing this now? Like, and it's just a matter of, you know, we're sitting and waiting. We've got a lame duck prime minister. Everyone knows that. He knows that. Polyev knows that. Jagmeet Singh knows that. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret. He's a lame duck sitting prime minister. Um,
When
and
it and you
again, back to me, it's just like there is going to be an election this year. Just it's a matter of when. Is it going to be sooner or is it going to be later?
And I think it's time to start using plain language. I understand the distinction between what it means to be prorogued and what it means to be dissolved, but for all intents and purposes, our parliament is completely ineffective, right? Completely, and any decisions made from here on out are simply process decisions. I saw a thing where earlier where after Pierre Trudeau had prorogued Parliament, they asked him about his day, and he said, "Oh, I was working on Aboriginal affairs and so on and so forth." But nothing outreaching, nothing, anything major happens. All this talk of our sovereignty in the North, all this talk of 25% tariffs
Tariffs.
across the board, including Netflix, by the way.
Yeah.
I can understand the urgent need for change at a quicker rate than what Canadians are being presented with. So the next few weeks are, I think that we live in a civil society where Canadians for the most part are okay with our governments following these kind of processes. However, what happens in countries where people are less tolerant, who feel more deceived, who feel more, I'm telling you, they take it to themselves for change, and
Right.
and that's not happening here yet.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to see a violent coup here to overthrow the government, right? Like you would in some um, less countries or more corrupt countries. Not saying there isn't enough corruption in Canadian and U.S. politics and the rest of the first world as well, but when you look at
well,
those extremely corrupt, um, underdeveloped countries, and yeah, they have those coups to overthrow a government. That's not going to happen here. It's yeah, sure, you're going to have this peaceful protest potentially, and and then that's it. At the end of the
well,
day, after the protest, everyone goes home, and does anything change? Well, probably not. Like you said, it's a parliamentary process. We're just in the early stage of that, and, and we just have to kind of wait and see until we get through to the end of it.
agree more, Dave. It looks like we're back into our audio problems.
Yeah, I see that. I'm happy that we were able to hold out for a fair bit though on you. Have you had a difficult time hearing me as well, or has it just been your own audio?
I've had a hard time with you.
Yeah, okay. So it's both ways. Okay, so I think what we'll do then in that case is end the live stream. It has been a lively discussion about Convoy 2.0, Convoy 2025. Again, I thank Sammy as the Passive Income Podcast political commentator. And we will be coming back at you live again soon with other topics, but we will definitely be keeping an eye on this develop story over the next week or two to see if it gains momentum or if it fizzles out. And that is the primary question right now with this convoy. Will it gain momentum or will it fizzle out? And honestly, I think either could happen. So who knows?
Well, with that, I think it's a good time to look for a place to happen, and Lovey, take it from there.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you all so much, everybody. We will
Make
see you
stops
again.
along the way.
Yeah, we will see you again soon. Thanks. And subscribe if you're on YouTube and follow.